Hi, boys and girls, it's Mrs. Batliner, and I am excited to read today's story representing women in history. Today's story is called Shirley Chisolm is a Verb, written by Veronica Chambers. So think about it. What is a verb? We learn verbs when we are in first grade, even kindergarten. What is a verb? Yeah, a verb is an action word. So as I go through the story and we read it, you will notice that there are words that are in blue. Those are action words that Shirley Chisholm uh, did during her life. And so that is why this story is called Shirley Chisholm is a Verb. Some words, when they connect with the right people, become almost like potions or spells. These words become magical. That's the way it was with Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm and verbs. She understood, almost intuitively, how and why verbs are not just words about being, but doing. Verbs are words that move the world forward. Look at that great illustration. Shirley's family understood all about moving. Her mother was from Barbados, an island in the Caribbean. Her father was from Guyana, a country in South America. They moved to New York City when Shirley was born. When Shirley was 3, her mother sent her and her sisters to Barbados so that their parents could work more hours. Her mother cleaned houses and office buildings. Her father worked in a factory. They worked all day and all night because they dreamed of buying a home for their family in the United States. So there's a picture of her mother working, cleaning houses. And then there is her father working in a factory. It looks like he's sewing something. So they worked super, super hard because they had a dream of buying a house in the US. In Barbados, surrounded by her grandmother, aunts, and uncles, little Shirley worked hard too. Her classroom was noisy, and the 3 teachers that shared the room needed to project to be heard above all of the passionate students. But her teachers taught Shirley how to speak up, and they helped her understand the power of words. Later, she would say, "If I speak and read and write easily, that early education is the cause." When she was 9, Shirley and her sisters moved back from Barbados to Brooklyn. Everything in Brooklyn was different, and Shirley missed the warm island weather. But Shirley loved indoor activities like going to the movies and reading. Shirley was a voracious reader, much like her father. Oh, what a big word, voracious. I have met many voracious readers. Think about it. Do you know someone or are you someone who reads all the time? If you do, then you are a voracious reader. Shirley was also a dedicated student, and at her high school in Brooklyn, she was vice president of the Junior Artista Honor Society and graduated with a Medal of Excellence in French. She earned scholarships to both Vassar and Oberlin colleges, but her parents could not afford their room and board. Shirley decided to go to Brooklyn College instead and live at home in the brownstone her parents were ultimately able to buy through their hard work. So, boys and girls, when you go to college, not only do you have to pay for the school, you have to pay for the place that you live. And that's called room and board. That's the place that you live and where you eat. So her parents could not afford that. So she went to a school where she could live at home. In college, Shirley decided to pursue a career in education. She became a nursery school teacher and then earned her master's degree. Completing her education was hard work, but it paid off. She directed daycare centers and became a consultant to the city on early education. She helped implement and organize a program called Head Start, which helps 3 and 4 year olds get ready for kindergarten. So we have Head Start in our schools. So it was because Shirley Chisolm started it and she organized a Head Start program where she was a teacher. It's pretty amazing. But Shirley wanted to help even more people. She believed that service to others is the rent you pay for your room on earth, which is another way to say that she wanted to use her verbs and improve the lives of as many people as she could, just like her parents and her teachers had improved her own. She decided to go into politics. She ran for and won a seat on the New York State Assembly. The Assembly makes decisions for people all over the state of New York. She was one of the first people to argue that the New York State literacy test not be conducted only in English. New York was home to people from all over the world, and Shirley thought it was important to honor the native languages of all of the state's citizens. For her work in the New York State government, she was awarded a Salute to Women Doers Award. She was always a doer. Then Shirley ran for the United States Congress, the part of the government that makes decisions for people all over the country. It was a race few thought she could win, but Shirley believed if your heart told you it was the right thing to do, you should always listen. She knew she could only fail if she didn't try. Another great lesson, boys and girls, if you believe something, you can achieve it with hard work. She campaigned, meaning that she encouraged people to vote for her. Her slogan was "Unbought and Unbossed." Vote Chisolm, 1968. She wanted the people to know that she would never choose money or power over what was important to them. She campaigned in both English and Spanish because she wanted as many people as possible to understand her message. In her speeches, she called herself Fighting Shirley Chisolm because she wanted voters to know she wasn't afraid to stand up for what she believed in. Thumb up if you would vote for her. Yeah, I think I would vote for her. The people of Brooklyn chose Shirley to represent them. She became the first Black woman ever elected to Congress. It's pretty special. Shirley traveled to Washington, D.C. There wasn't a single person who looked like her. It was a lonely time, being the first and only often is. So, what do you notice behind her? Yeah, just like some of the other stories that we read, many times in the past, it was always men who ran the government and who ran things. So not only was she a woman, but she was a Black woman. And you notice the people behind her were not Black. So she had it pretty difficult there for a while. But Shirley wouldn't give up. She thought of all the people back in Brooklyn who had voted for her. Shirley felt forever linked to them. Shirley's first assignment in Congress was the House Agricultural Committee, a group of people who oversee the farmlands of America. Shirley was disappointed. She came from a big city. How would working with the farms help the people in Brooklyn who voted for her? So think about that. She came from the city, but her first assignment was to be on a committee that was talking about farms. She knew nothing about farms. She shared this question with her friend. He encouraged her to use her position on the committee to help feed the hungry all over, including her beloved Brooklyn. Shirley helped to initiate a program called WIC, which assists women, infants, and children in need of food. Shirley also helped create the National School Lunch Program, but she didn't decide the menus. So if you don't like your lunch, please don't blame her. So she used her talent, even though she didn't know anything about farming. She used her talents to help feed people all over the world, and she helped create a school lunch. Because of her hard work, she eventually earned her dream job helping students and workers through the Education and Labor Committee. Shirley said, "You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining." She said, "If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair." Great advice. And Shirley wasn't just concerned about getting a seat at the table for herself. She never wanted to be the one and only. She helped create the Congressional Black Caucus so more African Americans could be elected to serve in Washington, D.C. She wanted Congress to look like the America that had elected her. Not everyone in Washington applauded Shirley's wins. She was always more interested in serving people than in making laws that helped big businesses. The men on Capitol Hill, who cared more about power and money, said, "Go home, Shirley Chisolm." Okay, so she wanted to make things better for the people. But some people in politics, they just want to help big businesses. So those men and women did not like her, so they're like, "Go home." She replied, "I'm fighting Shirley Chisolm. You can't wish me away. You just can't." She remembered her impassioned teachers and her hardworking parents, and it gave her the spirit and spunk to challenge the old age traditions. She said, "I'm not afraid of anything or anybody." Shirley was also unafraid that in 1972, after 4 years in Congress, she decided to run for president. Before a large crowd of people, she announced, "I stand before you today as a candidate for the presidency of the United States of America." She was the first Black person and the first woman to make a serious bid for the presidency. She said, "I'm not the candidate for Black America, although I am Black and proud. I'm not the candidate for the women's movement of this country, although I am a woman and I'm equally proud of that. I am the candidate of the people of America." Shirley crisscrossed the nation, giving speeches, debating candidates on television, and registering voters. She needed to convince the Democratic Party that she would be the best candidate for president. People called Shirley Chisholm many things before. Now they said she was Black, beautiful, brave, brainy, bright, believable. Some of the other candidates were angry that Shirley was taking votes away from them. But Shirley knew how to hold her ground. She said, "Excuse me? I have a right to be here. Pay attention. I've got something to say. Listen, I've got a job to do, and I intend to do it." So she did not let those people who did not want her there, she did not let them scare her. She stood her ground and said, "I have a right to be here too." When people tried to silence her, Shirley spoke louder. When the media ignored her, Shirley protested vigorously. When other politicians tried to bully her, Shirley stood stronger. When her opponent said hurtful things, Shirley smiled wider. So, this is a great lesson that she had. She didn't try to get even with people. She wasn't mean to people. When people were mean to her, she just worked harder and she smiled wider. When they bullied her, she stood stronger. Great attributes that she has. Then Shirley heard that the Democrats had decided that she would not be their presidential candidate. Shirley was disappointed, but not discouraged. Shirley realized that just because she didn't win, it didn't mean that she lost. During her presidential bid, she had gained more delegates than many in than the party expected. With each delegate that voted for her, she put a crack in the ceiling that separated women and men of color from the highest seat in the nation, the presidency. So even though she did not get the bid to run for president, she still made some ground where people kind of thought, hey, women can do this, and women of color can do this. Some races are relays. We only need to run as far and as fast as we can. Shirley's verbs, her words, and her actions planted the seeds of possibility for others. 12 years later, Geraldine Ferraro would crack the ceiling further when she gained the Democratic nomination for vice president. 25 years after that, President Barack Obama would ascend all the way to the White House. 7 years later, Hillary Rodham Clinton would put 18 million more cracks in that ceiling when the Democrats nominated her for president. So because Shirley did all those different things, later on, there were women and there were men of color who actually won the presidency. And then in 2018, a record-breaking 131 women were elected to Congress. It's a number that would have made Shirley beam. Part of the congressional class of 2018 was a young woman named Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Like Shirley, she was also known as the Congresswoman from New York. Like Shirley, Alexandria did things her way, and she prioritized the people who had elected her and put their concerns first. Shirley Chisolm inspired her. On her first day of Congress, Alexandria said, "From suffragettes to Shirley Chisolm, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the mothers of the movement." She informed the people in Washington that, in the spirit of Shirley, she was fighting Alexandria, and they couldn't just wish her away. They couldn't. So, because of Shirley and her previous actions, other people, like 131 women, were now in Congress. Shirley Chisholm once said, "The next time a woman of whatever color or dark-skinned person of whatever sex aspires to be president, the way should be a little smoother because I helped pave it." It was always her intention to throw the doors of government wide open, and she did. When Shirley retired from Congress after serving 7 consecutive terms in office, she said she wanted to be known for her courage to stand up for herself and the people who had elected her. She said, "I'd like them to say that Shirley Chisholm had guts." In 2015, President Barack Obama awarded Chisholm the Medal of Freedom. Shirley's great-nephew accepted the award on her behalf. Speaking of her service to the nation and how tireless she was in her quest, President Obama said, "There are people in our country's history who don't look left or right. They look straight ahead." Shirley Chisholm was one of those people. Take a look at that illustration. Really does look like Barack Obama to me. Shirley Chisholm accomplished so much because she chose her verbs carefully. learn, negotiate, listen, stand, campaign, invite, debate, inspire, speak, represent. It's your turn now. What verbs will you choose? Another great illustration. So, a personal note from the author. So, remember, this is not an autobiography, this is a biography. All right, so this is what the author wrote. I grew up in Brooklyn, and I remember walking to school and seeing Shirley Chisholm for Congress posters all around my neighborhood. We didn't have much money. There were days when my mother would announce that dinner would be some semblance of scraps from the pantry, what she called air pudding and nothing pie. And yet, because of Shirley Chisholm, I thought I could be a congresswoman. After all, I passed a picture of a woman who looked a lot like me who had that job. I know that I'm not the only kid from the boroughs of New York who felt that way because as I was growing up, I would hear Shirley Chisholm's name checked in the hip hop songs that I loved, like Biz Markie's lines, make you cooperate with the rhythm. That is what I give them. Reagan is the president, but I voted for Shirley Chisholm. She ran in 1972, but rapper after rapper cited her run many years later. Tribe Called Quest rapped, I got a brave heart like the one called Shirley Chisholm. Redman and Method Man did a spin on Biz Markie's lines where they rapped, Clinton is the president, but I voted for Shirley Chisholm. And I always loved the poetic elegance of Andre 3000's reference to her. You're the prism, Shirley Chisholm, the first. In 2004, the extraordinary young filmmaker named Shola Lynch debuted her wonderful documentary about Shirley's historic race, Chisholm 72, on Bought and Unbossed. In fact, it was a line from Miss Lynch that inspired the title of this book. Shirley Chisholm died just a few months later on January 1st, 2005. Lynch's documentary was nominated for a Sundance Grand Jury Prize, won the Peabody Award, and is available on Amazon and Netflix. 77 minutes of inspiring American history with great clips featuring everyone from Walter Cronkite to Gloria Steinem to Shirley herself. Shirley's autobiographies, The Good Fight and The On Bought and On Bossed, are inspiring portraits of this one-of-a-kind civic leader. If you're thinking about running for an office, any kind of office, some websites you might want to consider are sheshouldrun.org, higherheightsforamerica.org, and runforsomething.net. There are lots of other ways to get involved too, like volunteering for a campaign in your community or a cause that's important to you. I hope this book inspires you to raise your voice, take charge, and make waves in support of the causes and leaders you believe in. So, boys and girls, if you have Netflix, see if you can find the Netflix story about Shirley Chisholm. That's pretty exciting. So once again, I love the fact that the dedication page is in the back of the book. And this is to Professor Alfred Rowe, who provided the batteries, and to Bridget and Tance, who taught me always stand tall, put my foot down, and keep my head up, even when all feels impossible. So I hope you like this story about Shirley Chisholm, and I hope it inspires you to become anything that you want. Once again, we keep talking about this. Hard work can make you achieve anything that you want to do. I hope you enjoyed our story, and I will see you the next time.